My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
I'm Simone White. Today's leadership quote comes from John Quincy Adams. If your action inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Thank you so much for listening all around the world.
You're listening to episode 68.
Hey friends, thanks for tuning in. I'm excited to share my conversation with Simone White. But first, I wanted to thank everyone for an awesome launch week for my book. Hit number 1 on a couple rankings, and just grateful for everyone who reached out and said they enjoyed the book so far, and for everyone who purchased the 99-cent Kindle deal or ordered the paperback and so on. Thank you so much for your support. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope the book is very, very helpful for you. Of course, if you haven't had a chance to grab a copy, you can check out the first 3 chapters for free at leaderassistantbook.com or order the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you like to purchase books. Thanks again for your support, and here is the interview with Simone. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm speaking with Simone White, all the way on the other side of the world. Simone, how are we doing?
I'm good, thanks, Jeremy. Nice to be able to join you today.
We got to speak at the same conference, and you got to meet my wife, who says hi, by the way.
It's lovely to meet her.
Yeah, it's just fun to meet you and hear about your story. So I'm very excited today to share your story with my listeners. So let's jump right in and hear a little bit of your backstory. What was your very first job, and what skills did you learn in that role that you still use today?
It's really interesting. So my very first job was in a department store. I was 15 and 3 months. I remember exactly because that was the legal age I was able to work and get paid officially. And it was within a toy department. It was great, simply because, one, I got to play with all the latest new toys, computer games, etc. But it was customer service orientated. So the customer is always right. So you had to learn how to deal with people who were lovely and people who were not so lovely. So I learned very early on about emotional intelligence. Not that I knew it was that then. It was just learning how to deal with different personalities. And it's something that I still use today.
Awesome. Yeah, I worked at Walmart, and my brother worked in the toy department right next to me. So it was always fun. Hey, here's this new toy that came in.
Exactly. Or here's this new cozy coupe that I could still fit in and drive across the floor at the time. So yeah. Awesome.
So how did you kind of progress from there and end up eventually becoming an executive assistant?
Well, I took that job as a Saturday job. So it was something that I did just to earn extra cash while I was going through school. And then I actually graduated in something quite far removed to what I do today. So I graduated in fashion journalism and promotion. When I was decided what I wanted to do as a career, at school I knew that I didn't want to go out and work straight away. So I asked my mum for some career advice, and my mum's career advice to me was, Simone, people will always need clothes. And at the time, the 2 things that I really enjoyed were music and fashion. And with her advice, I thought, okay, then people will always need clothes. Let me learn how to design and make them from scratch. So that took me to the London College of Fashion, where I studied how to make a garment from scratch. And whilst I was there, I realized that there was this whole world and a whole organization of people who their day job was to put on fashion shows. So my final 2 years of study was studying just how to do that. So I learned how to do catwalk shows, all the organization behind it. And when I graduated, although it was great doing all of that stuff, doing London Fashion Week and Paris Fashion Week, I also knew at that time, and I think I must have been 25, that I couldn't live in that world continuously. I couldn't see myself doing that every single day. It's quite I don't want to use the word pretentious, but it's a world where you're not always yourself. So you spend a lot of time being super nice to people who you might not even like. And I didn't know if I could do that continuously. So after I graduated, I needed money. With the journalism skills that I had, I'd learned how to type, how to take minutes, how to deal with people. I joined a couple of recruitment agencies, and the first job that they offered me was at a well-known museum in London called the Victoria and Albert Museum. It was in their acquisitions department, and it was as a typist. And at that point, I had a very fast typing speed because of having to learn journalism. And it was also, the reason why I took that job is I most probably spent at least once a week in the Victoria and Albert Museum because they had beautiful garments, and they still do. And it's where you learnt about the history of fashion. So that was my introduction to being in the administration field, by moving from the world of fashion and journalism into the acquisitions department at the V&A Museum.
So you basically went from being nice to people you may not like to being nice to people you may not like as an assistant?
Exactly. but it made it a lot easier working in an office rather than managing shopping models on a catwalk.
That's great. So what was the point when you thought, okay, this assistant job and role is really a career for me?
It's really interesting because I didn't think of it as a career. I only thought of what I do now as a career maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Before then, it was a job that I loved, that I did really well. So I always thought of myself as a really good assistant. I would be proactive in the way that I worked. I wanted to be loyal to my team. I would always do the very best. But I didn't really look outside what I was immediately doing. So I didn't know what was happening. Was there an industry for assistants? Were there events for assistants? I didn't really think of it as a career, to be honest with you. It was just something that I did, I enjoyed, and I did it well. I would say it's only been in the past 7 or 8 years that I've realized what I do is something that I can grow and be recognized in. And I now view it as a career, which is strange because I've been doing it for over 20 years.
So what would you encourage other assistants in when it comes to trying to kind of make that shift from this is just a job that I'm good at to this is a career that I can own and grow in?
You make a really good point in that question because you talk about owning something. And I think the very nature of our job as assistants sometimes makes it hard for us to think that we own something, because a lot of the time we are being reactive or we're responding to requests from others. And simply because of that, we feel that we don't own it. We don't own what we do. And it's only when you begin to understand that what we do as assistants or administrators, no matter your title that an organization gives you, you are the SME, you're the subject matter expert at what you do. And what I found is that assistants often will not only ask for guidance on what they should be doing, but also how they should be doing it. And because of that, we don't have that sense of ownership. So my mind shift change has been that when I'm working with teams or executives, I want to know what they want, but I provide them with the detail and the guidance as to how I'm going to do it, because that gives me a sense of ownership and that makes me manage my career. And I think that's a mindset that more and more assistants are having simply because of the way the workforce is changing. But I think it's one thing that we really need to start thinking about more, in that we need to own what we do as assistants, and what we do supports others, rather than thinking my manager tells me and owns what I do. Because if that manager was to then leave, it kind of puts us in limbo. We're then waiting for the next person to tell us what to do. Whereas if we own what we do, we're the ones who have some form of control over it.
That's great. So let's say you get to where the mindset's shifted, where you're owning what you do and you really want to grow and expand. How can an assistant grow existing skills and develop new skills?
I think it all depends on where you are. There is a lot more help out there now for assistants to remain relevant. And I think that's really important if we look at what's happening now. I know when I first started out at the BNA, I was using a typewriter with Wipeout or Tipex, whereas people don't use that now. So for us to remain relevant, we need to keep up with technology. Otherwise, we could find that technology is taking over some of the things that we do. We also have to not fear technology. So if I think about the fact that my boss is currently in New York, it's her working hours now. I'm talking with you. I'm going to be offline for the next hour. I'm not fearing what happens if she needs me or if she can't do something. Because of technology has also allowed her to be self-sufficient for when I'm not available at the touch of a button. But it also allows me to expand what I'm doing. So I can learn new technologies, which I can roll out to my team, which helps to support them and gives me time back to be more involved with what the team are doing. So although we all have core responsibilities, things that have to get done and that we as assistants need to manage, if there is technology that allows us to gain some time back and allows some people to be a little more self-sufficient with their time, we can really start thinking more strategically about the input and the impact we can make to our teams, because it's impact and that visible impact that we make that enables us to grow and also enables us to be recognized for what we are doing.
Yeah, totally agree. That's great. So when we met in Germany last year, we were both speaking at a conference at the European Central Bank, and it was a great time. You spoke on networking.
Yes.
And how you kind of have grown. You're at BlackRock, and you've kind of grown a networking group and community there. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of being in a community of other EAs and then tips on how to network?
Definitely. I think networks is something we see a lot of in organizations. I know in my own, we have a women's network, we have families at BlackRock, we have our out network. So organizations really understand the importance of networks. And most of the time, as assistants, we do network, but not formally. And I think the power of a formal network cannot be understated or underestimated. So having a formal network, if possible, within your organization can really help you to move the dial. And the reason why I say that is BlackRock is a really large organization. So for individuals to have their voice heard can be quite hard. But if individuals who all have the same thought or who all do the same job get together as a collective, it's a much more powerful voice. And it's the reason why the network grew here at BlackRock. So we started in EMEA originally, and that was back in 2013. So we launched a network in EMEA called ACE at the time. It stood for Assistant Community EMEA. And that supported the 100 and I think it was 32 assistants across the EMEA-wide offices. And what was really nice was that we could have issues in London that they were having in our Paris office or they had in our Copenhagen office. But if the assistants didn't have a way or somewhere centrally to communicate that, it could take a solution to come about. But once we created that network and not only connected between assistants, but also connected with what we call stakeholders, so with our AV departments or with expenses or with travel. Anytime we had an issue or we had an idea, we could reach out to those stakeholders and say, this could really help us as a community, which would impact the business, work with us. And that's what started to happen, and that's how the EMEA network grew. And at the same time, I think our West Coast, in the West Coast of the US in San Francisco, they had started a network, so completely independently. And then the East Coast started a network completely independently. So we had 3 networks that the regions knew about, but we didn't know about globally. And we started to connect regionally. And then back in 2016, there were things happening and we thought actually it would be more powerful to speak globally because these were things that were affecting assistants globally. And that's how GAIN was formed. And I became the chair of the global network, which is now GAIN. And it is making tremendous strides in really supporting assistants at BlackRock. I think one of the things that we were able to do this year on a global basis in conjunction with HR is roll out a program of assisting assistants to understand the importance of SMART objectives and know what that looks like at BlackRock. So assistants would have the ability to understand how they could create SMART objectives for themselves, but not only did it go to the assistants, it also went to all of the HR business partners so that when a manager might say, it's that time of year, I'd really like some advice on how to help my assistant, there was immediately a talking point deck that they could share. And we've had feedback from assistants to say that that's helped tremendously. So it's really important to realize that as a group of assistants, we are so much more powerful if we are a group and if we're speaking in unison. We might not always agree, but if we're talking together to try and provide solutions, that enables the company to actually see us rather than a silo as a group.
Yeah, that brings up one of my other questions I was going to ask is how can we help executives and HR departments value assistance? And it sounds like your global administrative initiative network, GAIN, is really doing that because it's, like you said, it's coming together as a group and valuing the assistants, each other, and then the company seems to have embraced that. Is that right?
Definitely. I think it's one of those things that if you ask most people, and sometimes even if you ask an assistant, tell me what you do, the first things that tend to come out of their mouth is that they manage the diary of someone or they are the support person. But to really articulate what we do is quite hard. And if we find it difficult as the person doing the role, how much more so do HR or managers? So by creating guidance and really trying to define how we support and the role that we play at BlackRock, it helps not only us as assistants, but it helps the wider business. And the growth of the network, I think, and the way that the company has embraced it has really helped. From where we started at the beginning, we have a number of networks here, and we are part of that network. So we have something called Mosaic that oversees all of them, and we sit within that. So it really gives us that presence among the rest of the organization where people might not necessarily see us.
That's great. So how many assistants are in your global network?
So we have 506 assistants globally, and our network isn't something that you need to join. Once you're an assistant at BlackRock, you're automatically a part of it. And how it works is that whatever programming is happening regionally, so we're organized globally, so I sit as global chair. We also have a series of senior managing directors who are our sponsors. But then within each region, so in APAC, in EMEA, and in the Americas, there are regional steering committees. And each steering committee, we work against the same global framework that we create for ourselves. But everybody's experiences are different because of regional differences, because of what is required in each region. So the regional teams, they work on programs for their region. So globally, it's only if we're doing really big projects or if the company's changing things that need to roll out globally, so every assistant it's going to change for, that's where the organization sits under me and the strategy sits under me. But regionally, it's really nice for the regional offices to say, we need more training in this particular area, and they will work on that. And then it's up to the individual assistants in that region either to say, yes, this is something that I really want to do, or for them to say, actually, I don't really need that. But everybody's automatically a part of the GAIN network once they're an assistant at BlackRock.
So when a new assistant signs on, they're automatically added. What's kind of their orientation process, or how do you help new assistants feel like they belong?
So this is something that we're still in progress with as we went global just over a year ago. So from a global perspective, we are just finalizing now a global onboarding deck. And this is guidance around the 1,000,001 things that you need to know as an assistant to support everybody else within the business. So that's been rolled out globally. And how we're having to do it, because we have so many different offices around the globe and what the office provides is so different, we've tried to do an overall guide to our systems that are global. And then within those materials, so for instance, in EMEA, we then have separate pages for the Paris office or the Budapest office or for Copenhagen. And that really digs down into further detail. And we're doing that in the Americas, and we're also doing it in APAC. Being global means that we're often sending our executives across the globe, and the way that they interact or what they need in those offices can be completely different to the one their home base is in. So having simple things like how a desk is organized or an office is organized, if I send my executive to Hong Kong, is really important. The security protocols can be completely different than if they were coming into the London office. So that's one thing that we're trying to roll out globally. In EMEA, when we rolled out the onboarding program originally, what we did was each new assistant received a welcome pack, and it's something we're trying to roll out globally now. And in that welcome pack, we all have corporate ID cards that we need to carry around. And in our building, for instance, so the building that I sit in, there are 101 assistants in this building across 10 floors. So it's very easy for me to get into a lift with a group of people and not know that out of that group of 10, 3 of them may be assistants. So it could be quite isolated in that respect. So it was something that was happening in our IT department that we picked up on. So in our IT department, every day we would have IT specialists walk the floor, and they had red lanyards so that if you were having an IT issue, you could actually see somebody with a red lanyard and ask them for help. And we thought that was such a really easy way to identify someone. So in EMEA, what we did was we created a lanyard for badge holders, and it had our logo, and it was in the branding colors. And we would wear it. So if we stepped in a lift and saw somebody else wearing that, we knew they were an assistant. And it was a really good way to start a conversation. So we're trying again to think of new ways now that we've gone global that will work across all offices, so that People are welcomed on day one. They're introduced to the steering committee, who their regional steering committee are. They know that they have a network, so that there's always not just maybe one individual who they've been said this person's going to show you around, but there's 504 of us globally who they can reach out to.
That's great. It's amazing. It makes me want to join your team.
Come, Jeremy, we'd have you. All helps with the diversity.
So if you could snap your fingers and instantly give all assistants more of something, what would it be?
Confidence. I think as assistants, we have confidence when our executives have told us to do something, but we don't have the confidence, I found, to advocate for ourselves. I guess it often also comes in line with loyalty. We are so loyal to our team sometimes that we forget to be loyal to ourselves. And it's really important to have confidence to ask for training, to have the ability to say, I've got a lot on right now. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's just I can't do it right now. We need to stop saying yes all the time and taking everything on board, because by doing that, we might be efficient in getting work out, but we're not effective in the way that we do it. So I think giving assistants confidence to be more confident in their role and what they bring to the table could really help our profession.
I agree. Love it. So let's talk a little bit about your career as an assistant. What is maybe one of the biggest mistakes you've made, and what did you learn from the experience?
Saying yes all the time. I think it's natural that we want to help everybody. And it's fine if you are supporting, or it may be fine if you're supporting one individual. But if you're supporting 10 or 15 or 20 or 30, you cannot say yes all the time. And by saying no, it's not an indication that you don't want to help. It's an indication that you're managing your time effectively. It's understanding that I want to help you, but I can't right now, but I'll let you know how you might be able to do this for yourself. So I got to the point where I was saying yes all the time, and then I would be stressing because I have too many deadlines to meet. And then because I have so many deadlines, I would make mistakes. I remember the mistake was never caught because I caught the mistake in time, but it just so happened that I was booking Eurostar travel for an executive. And it was one of those months where the day and day of the month were exactly the same in the March and April. And I ended up booking the travel tickets for the wrong month. And it just so happened that the day before I was looking at it and I caught the mistake. So it didn't impact the executive. But if I had stopped trying to get so many things done and allowed myself the time to double check, I wouldn't have that problem. Now, you won't always have the time to double check. Work goes in peaks and flows, and it's something that I am still it's not something I've overcome. I'm still learning this skill. But it's something I'm constantly having to remind myself that my role here is not to say yes to everybody. My role is to effectively and efficiently help manage the team. And I can only do that by fully understanding what's on my plate and how I can get that done. And that's by learning how to say no on occasion.
That's great. So what makes an assistant a leader?
This I've learned over the past couple of years, and it's why I like that leadership quote from John Quincy Adams. Often we think of leaders as being those who are at the top of a corporate structure, or those who have the ability to tell others what to do. What I found is that if what you do encourages somebody else to do something differently, and to make a change. And if you are actively trying to help others do better, that makes you a leader. So you can be an assistant and be a leader. There are, especially within administration, you can set precedents around administration. You don't need to wait for somebody else to give you the authorization to do that. If you see that something is fundamentally not working, suggest how it can be changed and then run with that. If you need to get approval because it's a big change, you get the approval, but that's something you can work on. That's something that you own, and that makes you a leader in that space.
That's great. So you've got this you're global chair of the Global Assistant Network, and you're providing resources. What's one book or resource that you would recommend to all assistants?
There is so much out there. I'll have to start off actually by saying listening to your podcast, because it's the thing that I do. I listen to your podcast on my commute on the way into work. And I find it easier to listen to a podcast than I would in trying to pick up a book, because I work full time and I have 2 children and a household to run. So any time that I do have, once I've left the building, is normally really precious. And my commute is time that is literally mine. It's only 15 minutes on the train and then 15 minutes walk. But that half an hour, I can listen to one of your podcasts. And the variety of people that you have, you get so many different perspectives.
Well, I just want to say thank you. And I wanted to say that I'm not paying you to say that. So
I promise Jeremy's not paying me. He is not paying me to say this. I think the other thing is LinkedIn. I learn so much from LinkedIn. So the other thing that I do, so normally it's a podcast in the morning, and on my commute back home, I scroll through LinkedIn, and I've added I follow different people on LinkedIn, different people, different organizations, and then I just read. And there's so many, people often put quotes on there. So I can't say there's one particular person that I follow, but I think LinkedIn is such a large resource, and there's so many assistants out there who are providing so much information. Just if you haven't got a profile on LinkedIn, create one and then just follow a couple of people. Twitter's another place as well. But you can gain so much information just by following different organizations and becoming part of groups.
Yeah, I 100% agree. LinkedIn is a gold mine, and if you're not on it yet, you're doing yourself a disservice. Well, Simone, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with me and share your tips and wisdom and your story. Really hope we can see each other in person again someday. But it's been fun chatting. And how could we support what you're up to, and where can my listeners find you online?
Thank you, Jeremy. It's been so great speaking with you. It's been an honor to be a guest on your podcast. If people want to find me online, as I said, LinkedIn is great. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. You'll find me under Simone-White. If you type in BlackRock after that, I think you should be able to find me, because the LinkedIn name's quite long. I'm also on Twitter, and my handle is @Mrs_SR White. How people can help, I think our profession is undergoing so much change right now. And if you are an assistant who's thinking, I love what I do, I just don't feel that people understand what I do, or that we don't get the recognition for what I do, make your voice heard somehow. Even if you don't have a network within your organization, there is a very big network of assistants out there on LinkedIn, as I mentioned. Make your voice heard there, because it's only by us leading change that change will be there. It won't happen without us trying to push and strive for it. We're the ones who need to do that. So I think that would be my biggest ask.
Love it. Well, thanks again, Simone, and we'll share all your social links on the show notes so people can find you and say hi and reach out and network. And yeah, hope you have a great one. And thanks again.
Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Thanks again, Simone. What a great conversation. Check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/68. And be sure to connect with Simone and say hi and have a great day and talk to you next time.
GoBulls.com